Why, my eye, sir. You've never used them before.
So this all starts for me with a passion for human creativity, an absolute passion for human imagination, our capacity to engender visions in our mind's eye and bring those visions into fruition. And this passion for creativity and for imagination has turned into a passion for technology, because I believe that technology is imagination literalized. I believe that technology is the embodiment of human creativity in the world. I believe that technology is how we turn the human mind inside out. And it's how we impregnate the world with mind. The cognitive philosophers, David Chalmers and Andy Clark, in their seminal essay, The Extended Mind Thesis, these guys describe technology as a scaffolding of mind that we use to extend our thoughts, our reach, and our vision, right? And it has always been so. We are a tool-making animal. As Marshall McLuhan famously said, we build the tools, and then the tools build us. There was a campaign put out there by Singularity University, which I think answers the question, what do we do with this power? Right? We are as gods and might as well get good at it. What do we do when we have the power of gods to author reality, to change the world with our creativity and our innovation? And the idea behind the campaign was to redefine the term billionaire, right? Because in the world of startup culture, everybody wants to create the next company and become the next billionaire. And that's cool, right? Aim high, for sure. But what if being a billionaire in the age of exponential technologies was not just making $1 billion, but what if being a billionaire meant positively touching 1 billion people? If you really want to aim high and you know what to do with all of this disruption, is try to positively touch 1 billion brains. Try to positively reach 1 billion minds.
The young lady in the front row has had her hand up for a while.
Just relating back to your original assertion regarding technology making religion obsolete, can you really say that technology will answer the kind of timeless questions that religion is always supposed to be able to answer, like what happens after death, or more subjective questions regarding morality and things like that?
Yes, I think that experiences of awe are, for me, the most sort of transcendent experiences. I never had them from religion, but I certainly get them when I watch, you know, the Hubble IMAX 3D film. And when you consider what the Hubble is, it's an instrument of man. It's an optic nerve floating in space that allows us to mainline the whole of time through our own optic nerves, to quote my friend Ross Anderson. And so when you consider what that does, to be able to gawk at all of space and time and fit that something as vast as that through something as small as our brain, to contemplate and push our perceptual boundaries to such a degree that we have to upgrade our mental schemata just to accommodate the scale of that experience, I say that expands our consciousness. I think that is a psychedelic experience that is an experience of that which exceeds our intellectual capacity.
She wants to come back at you.
Which is what Joseph Campbell refers to as God to begin with, that which exceeds our intellectual capacity.
That idea of having a transcendent dimension is one of the key facets of religious identity.
Right, except religion is never based on any fact or science.
At the same time, it's only...
The South African comedy The Gods Must Be Crazy tells the story of Z, a farmer from the Kalahari Desert who has no knowledge of the world beyond. Jason, do the rapid, sometimes exponential developments in technology make believing in a god or gods superfluous as we get closer to doing what some people believe that only gods can do?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that Stuart Brand said it best in the Whole Earth Catalog. He said we are as gods and might as well get good at it. And Alan Harrington says having invented the gods, we can turn into them. I mean, increasingly, I think what human beings do is we transcend our boundaries. We didn't stay in the caves, we haven't stayed on the planet, and we won't stay with the limitations of biology. I mean, now Moore's Law, the exponential growth curves of technology, are absorbing biology itself. So now the canvas of life is becoming the new instrument for the artist. So what might we make, you know? So when I say we are the gods now, I think we have transcended the need for traditional religion, because the need for religion came out of, I don't know if you're familiar with Ernest Becker's work, The Denial of Death. Pulitzer Prize-winning book in 1974, it says that the human condition is characterized by death anxiety, and the religious impulse, the romantic impulse, and the creative impulse are answers to that anxiety about the fact that we are mortal beings.
But people are still going to die, right? I mean, well, even with a smartphone, you're still going to die eventually.
You know, it's interesting. We're outsourcing more and more of our cognition to our smartphones. We can endlessly upgrade our smartphones. We haven't been able to upgrade our biology, but now we're going to be able to do it. Juan Enriquez talks about life code, and he says here we have software that can write its own hardware. So when we can master the information processes of biology, why can't we give ourselves indefinite lifespans? I mean, that's the first thing I would think we should do.
How would you pay for all these extra people?
There it is. Jason Silva, ladies and gentlemen. The arrogance of that man. To be pitied. For sure, to be pitied. But this is the standard issue mindset of the big tech developer. This is your futurist big tech developers right here. Standard issue. This is how they think, this is what they believe, and these are their motivations. I'm sitting at home in my living room tonight, and I wanted to get this video put together for you, and I've really been giving a few subjects a lot of thought lately. Some subjects I've been thinking about for years, but for the most part, subjects like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, simulation and emergence theory, which is something I've been focusing on for many years. Things like brain hacking and, you know, the mark of the beast and some end-time prophecy. And I want to share with you what the Lord has revealed to me. So I started this series of videos, this Bread and Circuses series, to cover the things that He revealed to me in the unique way that He reveals things to me. There's tons of videos out there that cover these topics at length. I mean, everyone has great things to offer and great things to say, but I'm throwing my hat in the ring mostly because I feel led by God to do so. I think this little piece to the big puzzle is going to be helpful to you, and I feel led to share it with you, so I'm going to do so. The winds have sort of been taken out of my sails lately. Not sure what's going on with my channel. Some videos are doing really well. But this Bread and Circus series is just kind of just sitting there. So I'm not sure if I'm executing this information in the best possible way. And I pray that whoever needs to see and hear this will, and then pass it on to others. So let's get right into it. The first video I did in the Bread and Circuses series begins with the testimony of one of the earliest developers of the implantable RFID microchip. He explains that the intent for the chip was mainly for identification and tracking purposes, similar to a barcode system for tracking inventory. Eventually, it could also be used as a money system, much like our debit or credit card. That's pretty much as far ahead as he could see at that time, which was like 40 years ago. I mean, it's pretty primitive technology. Compared to how tech has evolved since then, the RFID chip is like stone tools and chisels compared to what we have today. But he talks about how God revealed to him in this really compelling way that the microchip that he and his team were developing was the precursor to the mark of the beast. And he was convinced, absolutely convinced, that the mark of the beast would be a microchip implant. And there's a lot of Christians today that still think that it will be an implant, and they're very convinced, and it's hard-pressed to convince them otherwise. And that's not my job. That's not my job to convince people of anything. I honestly believe that what God showed him was exactly what the mark will be, but it's unfortunate that he was unable to extrapolate past his own level of tech knowledge. He missed it. It's important information regardless, but he missed it. He was limited by the level of technology at the time. He couldn't really see past that very much, and that I found that to be unfortunate. The technology behind the RFID chip was at the embryo stage of what it would later become. I mean, we're seeing that now. Here we are 4 decades later, and people still reject the idea of an implant. I mean, we're not going to be lining up for an implant, starting with like a few billion Christians who will be the first to refuse. I mean, if the powers that be were to develop this sophisticated implant and then decide to like make it mandatory, let me tell you, there'll be a worldwide revolt. Guaranteed. I mean, there's going to be people who would be willing to do it, probably more people, it's a surprising amount of people that would be willing to have an implant put in their brains or put under their skin, but there's going to be billions of people who will refuse. Okay, it says in Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, that no one could buy or sell anything unless he had the mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number of his name. And later on, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4, it talks about all those who will be beheaded because of their testimony about Jesus and because of the word of God. Then it says, they had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received the mark on their foreheads or their hands. It does not say they were beheaded for not taking the mark. It just says they were martyred for sharing the gospel and living the word of God. And because they are believers, of course they will refuse to worship the beast. They weren't beheaded for not taking the mark. They were beheaded for sharing the gospel. They were martyred for living by the word of God and for being obedient and dedicated to God. An important distinction. Sometime in the future, Christians will be beheaded for sharing the gospel and living obedient to the word of God. And then a little bit before that, the beast system will have all of the money system bound inside it. No more cash. If you aren't bound to the system, if you aren't operating from inside the system, you won't be able to buy or sell. Today, we could still withdraw money from the bank and operate from cash and not set up accounts online and things like that, you know, if we wanted to. We could disconnect if we wanted to, and soon that will become impossible. The only way you'll be able to buy anything or sell anything is to have accounts online, activity online. And you'll be required to share personal information. Not much different than how it is now. But technology has long surpassed the need for an implant. I mean, tech companies worked tirelessly inside their think tanks because they had to devise an external method to engage every human being on the planet into these systems. I mean, there has to be a system that gets everybody. And they figured it out. And we're seeing that now. Preparing the masses for this level of control does not take place overnight. It must be covert. It sneaks up on everyone. It takes a few generations to, several generations or a few generations to engineer the mind into accepting this level of control. And before you realize what's going on and can retreat, you're trapped. You're already bound in the system. Through devices like our cell phones, developers have utilized the easiest port of entry for engaging and holding captive the human consumer. The user has unwittingly succumbed to one of the most ancient and effective control strategies used by corrupt profiteers and governing bodies, bread and circuses. Bread and circuses, or panem et circenses, is a term coined by a first-century satirical poet named Juvenal, who, while watching the corrupt Roman government provide the poor with, all this free grain and games at the Colosseum, the people were deliberately kept distracted and appeased, to buy votes and minimize the chance for revolt. Eventually, the people became lazy and disinterested in the issues at hand. They neglected their civic duty, which was their birthright, to keep and hold their government accountable and to strive for excellence. It's an attention industry out there, and big tech companies are mass producing every attention exploit they can invent. The more time you spend on their product, the more money they make. And they're placing them in the homes and hands of every human person, and with the use of sophisticated psychology techniques that keep you engaged and keep you hooked, along with these brilliant marketing strategies that have you convinced you actually need these products, that they are a pivotal and necessary part of our daily existence. And then they insert these products into every aspect of human civilization. We become unwittingly bound. We're hyper-focused and dedicated, and even demanding these products at the highest quality available in today's market, never mind the expense. It's a data mining engine of superior but, you know, inhuman intelligence that tracks every move, every cognition, every impulse and opinion, what we value, the ebb and nuances of our human emotions, our religions, our political affiliations, all of our purchases, and not to mention, you know, the entire world economy, our hopes and inspirations, and then takes this cosmic pile of data and pumps it into a quantum computer that is programmed to learn, to observe and calculate. You know, it becomes this powerful tool that can calculate 50 million moves ahead of any of us at any moment, and then pumps out a perpetual stream of strategically baited screen images, reducing the human consumer to nothing more than a source of immense profit that's pliable for deception and control, primed, absolutely primed for the hijacking of human consciousness. I am convinced that every single dominion of public communication is part of the Antichrist system. If it's broadcast from a public secular domain, barring individual, free, independent content, like a lot of what you see here in this place, and with independent sites on the net, which they are feverishly trying to stop, every single domain of media and communication, whether it's television, radio, film, academia, if you see it on a screen, if you hear it broadcast on radio, it is Antichrist propaganda. Same principle with TV evangelists. Be careful. Use discernment. And all of this exploded during the counterculture period of the 60s, when Antichrist ideology forced its way into all of these domains and pushed everyone else out.
I talk to you now about another much publicized aspect of your life, which is the sort of political views that you hold. I'd like to particularly ask you as well, because it's related to the film industry, about that period in your career in Hollywood when you were to the forefront of the people who were blacklisting the alleged communist members of
well, that's not a true statement.
Well,
we were not blacklisting.
Well, you were.
They were. They were. No, they were blacklisting. We didn't name anybody. We stayed completely out of it and said, "We are Americans." Anybody that wanted to join us, it was fine. We gave no names out to anybody at any time ever.
But are you? But when you look back at that now, John, at this space of time, I mean, are you proud of what happened in Hollywood at that time?
I think it was probably a very necessary thing at the time, because the radical liberals were going to take over our business. And you wouldn't have had any pictures like that then.
No, but seriously though, I mean, were they in a position, I mean, the people who got kicked out of Hollywood, surely they were.
Who were kicked out?
Well, the people.
Now, wait a minute, tell me who was kicked out.
Well, the people who left Hollywood. I mean, let's take, for example, Carl Foreman.
Yeah, Carl Foreman.
I mean, was Dalton Trumbo.
Dalton Trumbo.
Look what happened to Larry Parks.
Larry Parks admitted that he'd been a commie, and he went on working.
Well, he didn't work for some time. It had a very
well, he hadn't worked a hell of a
career.
lot before that, had he?
Well, no, but I mean,
no.
But I mean, these aren't people, surely, are they, who you would expect to take over the industry?
Well, at the time, it seemed rather serious, and they were getting themselves into a position where they could control who would do the writing.
I read an interview that you gave, John, in which you said you objected to High Noon, to the film itself. You said it was un-American. I saw that film, and I guess a lot of people here in this audience would have seen that film, and I, for the life of me, can't see what's un-American about it.
Well, a whole city of people that have come across the plains and suffered all kinds of hardships are suddenly afraid to help out a sheriff because 3 men are coming into town that are tough. Now he goes to them and pleads them, and he goes into the church, and for some reason the women are all sitting on one side of the church and the men are sitting all on the other side of the church, and he pleads his case. And the men say, no, 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 and the women get up and say, you're yellow, you're cowards. I don't think that ever happens in the United States. Then at the end of the picture, he took the United States Marshal badge, threw it down, stepped on it, and walked off. I think those things are just a little bit un-American.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing, you see, because, I mean, I've seen that film not once, but, 4 or 5 times.
Well, you saw those things. Do they strike you as being
they strike me as being...
a true picture of the pioneer West?
No, but...
Or a picture of what Carl Foreman or somebody would like to give our children the impression?
No, but I mean, similarly, I'm sure that a lot of the movies that have been made about the West that you would approve of were similarly not a true picture of the West, nor of American society. I mean, I just took it to be, you know, a dramatic exposition of something or another, certainly not a knock at the American way of life. And I'm amazed that, you know, when I read it in the research, I thought, my God, you know, it's an extraordinary ultra-reaction.
Well, actually, you must realize what was going on at that time in our business.
Well, I was going to ask...
There was a heated thing going on. They were... a lot of people that were fine writers were weren't being used, and it was rough on them. And that's why I took up for that side, because Maury Riskin, who was a Pulitzer Prize winner, couldn't get a job because he didn't think exactly like these fellows. That's what started it, not us trying to throw them out.
Mm.
If you pledge allegiance to what these systems offer you, if you allow your mind to align with what they preach and teach, and in the process reject what the Word of God tells you, you've accepted the mark. You've worshipped the image of the beast. What the screens offer you is the image of the beast. People have this idea that the image of the beast is going to look like a statue of some figure at some point in the future. Or it'll be, you know, an image of a human man projected, you know, a projected image of some human-looking figure. It won't. And the image is already here. The image of the beast is a representation of everything it stands for. The image of the beast is a system that you can see when you turn on your communication devices, and it shows you what it is. The devil never reveals himself out in the open. Maybe he can't. But maybe he won't, because if you truly see, you will immediately wake up and be horrified. He remains hidden because it is in his nature to hide, to be subtle, to be deceptive. When you see the system, you see the adversary. They are one and the same. And his plans have not changed since the beginning, all the way back to the garden. What is the mark of the beast? It isn't a device. It's an application, a written code. It's a contract. It's a binding connection with the individual and the beast system, designating ownership. Eventually, it owns you, and no implantable device is necessary. This mark, which reads as being something on the hand or forehead, epi in the Greek means upon or on. It's something that will be visible out in the open and in plain sight. Just like the mark of Cain or pagan marks in biblical times, everyone will see it and know for whom they are affiliated and ultimately whom they openly serve. These verses in Revelation are not talking about something hidden under the skin or even a physical mark like a tattoo or a stamp or a brand, but the behavior of people which marks them as willingly bound. This is high-tech bread and circuses.